Okay, there we go. What's up, people? JV Wins, Dogon SS. We are here once again. Conscious Approach back in the building.
You
Thanks to everybody for tuning in, checking our videos out. We appreciate the support as we continue to grow this little tight knit community over here. Um, if this is the first time that you are seeing what we like to do over here on this channel, man, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. This is very akin to everything else that you are going to find on the channel. Not quite sure how many streams we have done up to this point,
a
but
lot.
we've done a lot. There's been a lot. So check those out, man. Check out the past videos, man. We drop a lot of jewels out here as we commentate on these various topics each and every week. Today is April the 9th. So again, thanks to everybody for tuning in. We are here, Constant Approach, once again. Shouts out to all of the tribe members. We appreciate you so very much. And with that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and kick things off with a throwback from the millennial generation. Paris Hilton, who has kind of somewhat faded from the public eye, or maybe not. I wouldn't know. That could perhaps be a reflection of me fading away from the consumption of mainstream television. But Paris Hilton gave some talking points, some quotes that I thought were a little interesting and wanted to bring up as a topic area on the channel. Paris Hilton from back in the day, she was one of the, I would say she was a part of, you know, after the whole real world road rules thing, she was a part of really, taking reality TV to the next level. I would say her along with those K people, the Kardashians.
Boo.
Yeah, I would hesitate to say that the Kardashians kind of took notes from what Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie did with their reality show as a blueprint for what they were able to turn into what eventually became the Kardashian TV show. So all of that goes to say that Paris Hilton, in my eyes, played somewhat of an influential role with respect to the modern proliferation of reality TV. And she made some interesting comments about parenting, or rather her kids, and the fact that she hopes that her kids don't grow up obsessed or addicted to social media the same way that she did. And we like to talk about groupthink mentality and mind control and balance on this channel on a semi-regular basis. So I thought that this was interesting for us to talk about. So this here says Paris Hilton says she hopes her kids won't have her social media addiction. Paris Hilton hopes her kids' futures won't involve a lot of scrolling on social media. During an appearance at the fourth A Day of Unreasonable Conversation Summit in Los Angeles on Monday, the heiress discussed her children, saying she hopes they will live in a world outside of social media and being on their phone all the time. Kids are not going outside anymore and playing as much because everyone's just so busy on their phones, she said. So hopefully my kids won't be as addicted to social media as I am, she added. Elsewhere in the discussion, Hilton said that she hopes her kids feel just so loved and seen that they will contribute to bringing positivity to the world. Hilton shares son Phoenix 1 and daughter London 4 months with her husband, entrepreneur Carter Rum. The reality TV star has publicly discussed how her traumas as a teenager affect her parenting. Hilton released a documentary in 2020, This is Paris, in which she detailed abuse she said she suffered as a teen at a boarding school in Utah. Hilton has since advocated for the reform of youth residential treatment programs that are often referred to as the quote troubled teen industry. So, someone who very much has benefited tremendously from social media and still very much so lives on social media, someone who has admitted to being addicted to social media herself, hopes that her children will live a more balanced, non social media oriented life, despite the fact that she wants her children to receive enough attention to bring positivity into the world. So, I would say that that's a bit of an oxymoron there. But be that as it may, not to nitpick, what do you make of Paris Hilton's comments that she hopes her children aren't addicted to social media in the same way that she is?
It's a noble cause. I mean, I back her. I second her in that sentiment. But at the same time, I would also follow that up by asking her, what steps and measures, would you be willing to take in order to ensure that this doesn't happen? I take her for somebody that has caregivers, nannies, to do all the heavy lifting for rearing her child. Um, so I don't know how much involvement she would necessarily have, but even if she isn't directly involved, if she's always around, I would say, what are you doing to lead by example? Now, if this child only sees you with your head down scrolling yourself, well, naturally they're going to want to scroll, at some point, probably immediately. Hey, what you got there? I want to do that too. So, children are very observant. They do follow their caregivers. Now, there are instances where we actually have drug addicts as parents, where the kids are monitoring this, and they don't want to do drugs. I've heard those stories before, that they've seen so much either through alcoholism or hardcore drugs that it made them not want to do it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody is an addict on something, that the child is going to be an addict themselves. But that's hardcore drugs. The thing is, the difference between hardcore drugs and social media, it's not very far. But the difference is, it's more of a slow drip. It comes off harmless, so people wouldn't mind, stepping into those waters. It's not boiling like drugs, so they ease their way into it, and next thing they know, they're neck deep and they can't figure out how they got so far. So I think that it's a noble thing, as I mentioned. I do, for her children's sake, hope that they don't grow up being addicted to this thing. But I tell you right now, um, out of and myself included, if somebody want to put me in a study and monitor my behavior, it feels like, sir, you are an addict. So I'm not above this. So, but I do know that children are monitoring. So, what are your thoughts, sir, on this, Miss Paris Hilton of all people? Talking about, uh, irony. What are your thoughts on Miss Paris Hilton not wanting her kids to be addicts on social media?
Yeah, I think it is pretty funny, but I also admire the sentiment, but I
Hmm.
hope that she is aware of the fact that if she has a desire for her children to not have the same social media addiction as her, the person who has the greatest influence on whether that comes to fruition is her.
Hmm.
So if she wants to ensure that, she should ensure herself that she makes it a priority as a parent to instill values in her children, so much so that they don't become addicted to social media. Like, that's within her wheelhouse.
Hmm.
Like, I promise you that as their parent, you are the one who is the most responsible for making sure that this does not happen. And the only thing that I found a bit weird about the tone of what she was saying was, it's as if she's suggesting that it's completely left up to the world and random chance to determine whether this is going to happen or not, and
Hmm.
that she has no input whatsoever on help on at least contributing to determining the outcome. And obviously, as your kids get older and they start doing things like making friends and going to schools and developing their own social identity, there's going to be outside influences that impact the development of young kids, that exist outside of the parameters of whatever is going on at home or with their own parents. We see this all the time. A part of what makes me who I am is has to do a lot with what I was exposed to when I wasn't at home around what my parents were teaching me when I was gone for 10 plus hours a day at school, or whenever I was hanging out with friends not at the house, or whenever I was at the basketball court, or wherever I was, in which I was physically not in a position to be sort of gleaning some of the things that my caregivers were imparting on me on a regular basis. So as our kids get older, they're not going to be physically in a proximity of within proximity of her to constantly hear particular messages over and over again, because you got to send them off to school and they're going to make friends and they're going to want to hang out and do whatever they do and they're not going to be around. But that doesn't mean that you don't play a heavy hand in contributing to some of the values that they will come to, um, kind of live by. And if you don't want your kids to be addicted to social media, and you can empathize with this because you yourself are addicted, then you play a heavy role in making sure that that doesn't happen. Like, you are their mother at the end of the day. So it isn't completely up to chance, not entirely. Yeah, there are certain things that are beyond your control. Can't control what they look and see, what they look at, what they see, what they're exposed to at all times.
Mhm.
But you are nevertheless a prevailing, influential part of some of the things that they will develop as they get older, as, like, habits and things of that nature. And it was just weird. Like, as I read through that, it kind of made it seem like she's saying, hey, I just had these kids, and man, do I really hope that they don't get into social media like me. And I get it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, do something about it. Like, use your prior experience, um, and teach them that there's other things going on in the world, that it's okay for them to walk outside, that they don't need to be glued to the tablet or the phones at all times. The one aspect about this that I do find to be interesting is it's unavoidable at this point. I have a friend, they have a 7-year old child, and they got to get the kid a phone because it's unavoidable. Like, outside of the fact that you want to be able to be in contact with your kid because of how crazy things are, you never know. If they're going to some place, something can pop off. You want to be able to get in touch with them. But even beyond that, you don't want to participate in, like, scarring your child traumatically from a social perspective. And if they're in a room full of kids and they all got phones, it's like an inevitability. You got to get the kid a phone. It's kind of weird and scary, but that's just kind of the way the world is these days. So you got to get them a phone, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a part of instilling some balance in them. And that's her responsibility. Like, I'm not a parent myself, obviously, so I'll take the word of other parents, but I'm of the mindset that parents have a lot to do with a lot of this stuff. um you are responsible for making sure that these things don't impact them in the ways that you don't want them to be impacted. So if you don't want your kids to be addicted to social media, make sure that you show them that there's a world outside of that. Even if it's a world that you're not a part of, you nevertheless are with them all the time. And I don't know. I just hope that this doesn't become a no-fly zone for parents. Like, 2024, we're already dealing with what appears to be several parental no-fly zones. Um, One of those no-fly zones is, apparently, you cannot socialize your children to identify with the sex in which they were born. Apparently that's improper. Apparently it's improper to teach them that they are binary. Apparently that's wrong. Um, Apparently it's improper to kind of socialize them to believe that because they were born a male, then that means they're a man, and if they were born a female, then that means they're a woman. Apparently that's improper. It's improper to insist that the schools that they attend leave the social stuff to being taught at the homes, and that the schools just stick to the vowels and arithmetics and reading and writing. Apparently that's improper. So now we got all of these no-fly zones flying around out here in these streets when it comes to what parents are supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing when it comes to their own children. But at the end of the day, this shouldn't be one of those no-fly zones. If a parent wants to tell a kid, hey, social media is okay, but it doesn't need to control you or completely be a part of your life or your universe, it should be okay to teach your kids some of those lessons, because balance, as we have iterated on this channel many times before, truly does take you a long way. So for Paris Hilton and for other parents like her who are pondering this type of, notion, go ahead and just be the responsible, influential party that is a part of your kid's life that is primarily responsible for showing them that they don't have to be addicted to social media.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point. I didn't really, because I only tackled the aspect of, the child's going to follow whatever they see the primary caregiver do. But there's also the aspect of, when you release your child to the wild and, public school or whatever school. But if you remember, if you think back, man, I know I can remember 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I'll come to school and the topic is whatever was on MTV the night before, whether it was Real World, Rule Rules, whether it was something like Chappelle's Show. It's like, when you're growing up and you're impressionable, you feel like you got to keep up with these things. And so it was like, hey, I ain't trying to be out of the loop. I want to see the latest Chappelle Show. I don't want to be, when everybody telling the joke in class, I don't want to be the only person that don't know it. And, with those things going on, there's a newer dynamic with these trends, lingo, that, if they're not abreast to these things, then they're behind. And then if you try to do the number of, oh yeah, what I'm saying, we won't do that in this house, you're just the old head. Because there's old head propaganda that these kids see on the thing.
Yeah.
He just don't get it. He's an old head. And it's like, no, we have morals and standards. See, that's that boomer talk, man. I mean, that's those millennial talk, man. You got to get with the times, So there's also those things. So I would also caveat all of that with, along with, making sure that you don't want your child to be up on these things, there has to be a holistic understanding of what social media is in the first place. There has to be a holistic understanding of what marketing is and all of these things in the first place. Trends, unnecessary trends. Like there has to be an education on what this goofy stuff is. So whenever they see it, encounter it, if kids at school are eating dish pods, then your child is one of the people that go, hey man, y'all need to stop that. Do y'all even know what this thing is? Put them ahead of the game. That way, if anything, they could use social media to make money versus being a consumer following the latest trends, jumping off a bridge while trying to do something crazy. So I think that needs to also be like a overall um lesson to be taught about what this machine is, how it doesn't really serve much of a purpose outside of these elements, and be mindful of X, Y, and Z. So even if they do find themselves down a rabbit hole of being on that thing for too many hours, there's still that voice in the back of their head of, hey, that's what that is. Why do you think they keep giving you that in your feed? Look at what your friends are doing now because of that. Having conversations like that so they don't become a part of the herd. So even if they are going to indulge, that they don't succumb to whatever the propaganda is, even in the limited hours you give it to them. So there still has to be. It's one of those things, man. Keep out of reach of children. I wish there was like a warning thing for these things, man. This is a crazy mechanism, especially with TikTok, where everything is just uncensored. It's just anything goes. Same thing with Twitter or X. That's just turned into a porn site. So it's madness, bro. But I think that also, along with, try to set the good example, is also developing a framework of standards of thought, so that way they don't succumb to group thinking and group mentalities. So, hey, man, but I don't expect this from Paris Hilton. I don't expect her to have these sit downs. I don't expect her to slow down. So, yeah, as we both agree with her sentiments, I really don't see it panning out that way. She's part of the machine, and if your children end up being a part of that, I wouldn't be surprised. So, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither would I. She's in a unique position in which, she was an inherent, she inherited what she has
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being a part of that family and the empire that was built by, her predecessors, if not predecessors, but
Mhm.
ancestors, not even ancestors, like her older family members and all of that kind of stuff, the generations that preceded her. And oftentimes when you are born with privilege, like the ills that are associated with overconsumption don't necessarily rear their ugly heads, because money can just be thrown at a lot of the issues that would come along with it otherwise. So, like, for people who aren't born with such a silver spoon, and for people who are born destined for the middle class, individuals who are literally destined to be sent into a feeler system for mass consumption and just being purchasers into perpetuity, social media is even more of an issue, because social media feeds that consumption beast. And for her, she was born with privilege, so to speak. So it's like she can afford to do these things, and it kind of masks some of the problems that come along with overconsumption, because is it really overconsumption if you can afford to do it comfortably? And I'm
Right.
not even asking that question rhetorically. Like, that's a question to ponder. Like, at what point does your activity become dangerous consumption? Because oftentimes when we look at some of this stuff, we're talking about people who can ill afford to do it because it can become costly, both from a financial and a mental standpoint. But for people who just kind of live above that fray, is it overconsumption? And that's more of an existential question. But I think it speaks to the notion that she was kind of born in an environment where she gets to sidestep that. And so perhaps because she got to sidestep it, she doesn't know how to teach it. And so maybe that's why she's kind of oblivious to, how do I get my kids or my children to grow up more balanced and not believing that social media is the whole universe. And that could literally be because she does not know how to impart such a form of wisdom, because she never had to learn those lessons herself. She could literally afford to be addicted to social media because it didn't come at a detriment to her because of where she exists socioeconomically.
Hmm.
So the sentiment is fine, like we've been saying, but at the end of the day, who's going to teach these values to those kids? Is supposed to be her and her father, presumably. But if they are ill equipped to do so because of how they came up, then at that point, it's anything goes. But the comment still came off as a bit odd to me, because it sounds like she is unaware that she has the greatest influence on whether that actually happens or not. She doesn't even know that, you know. And if you know anything about her history, maybe that can inform you on why that is a possibility. But nevertheless, unless she realizes that she has the most to do with that not happening or happening, depending on the result, those kids are pretty much, you know left up to the whims of the world. And all I can say is good luck at that point.
Hmm. Hey man, best of luck to you, Miss Hilton. I mean, I don't. I'm surprised. I am surprised to hear her say that. That's a kind of a humble thing to come from such a in your face TMZ person. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it shows that on some level she's somewhat conscientious. And I guess that kind of stuff comes with age. Because she's been around for a hot minute. Like, she's 43 years old now. So
Wow.
maybe that's what's going on. But at the end of the day, no one has a greater impact on whether those kids are going to grow up balanced than she does. She has the greatest impact on that. She's the primary caregiver. She's the mom. Her and the father, they got the greatest part to play in all of that. It's not just, oh, I hope this doesn't happen. If you don't want it to happen, try to do something about it, like most responsible parents do.
Hmm.
Shouts out to Paris Hilton, though. Good luck.
Good luck, man.
So, that's the thing, we always be saying that. Good luck.
But I'm telling you, especially in today's day and age, well, you need something on your side.
For real.